First up, Abigail. She has self crit rate imprint, but her main build doesn't use any crit rate, so there's not a good imprint. No ML version either. Next up, Alencia. She has self HP imprint, which is okay, but Alencia herself hasn't really used that much, so C tier. Araminta has effectiveness buff for herself and her ML version, but her ML version is really good with lots of F, so I'm gonna put this into A tier. Arya has self-defense buff imprint, but her ML version has the HP imprint, which is pretty good, especially since she's not a super meta unit, but she still uses a decent amount, so B tier. Arranka's gonna mainly be used for boss Arranka. Her imprint is defense percent, but she is a very meta relevant unit, so I'm gonna put into A tier. This one's gonna be mainly for ML Baal, which is a self-effectiveness imprint. He's really not meta relevant, so it's gonna put him to C tier. Same with Basar, it's gonna be mainly for the ML version, and he gives himself res, but he's really not meta relevant, so C tier. Next up, Bihu, who gives himself effectiveness, no ML version. He's mainly a PvE unit for like 99% of players, so I'm just gonna put him into D because it's a waste. Alona gonna be mainly used for the ML version, but again, no meta relevance, and it's only an attack percent imprint, so the C tier. Vegeta, completely unplayable unit, D tier. Celia has some relevance because of the ML version, and the ML version is somewhat relevant in PvP as well, and it's a HP percent imprint, so it's B tier. Bomb Model Kana, PvE unit, complete waste. Rieg, PvE unit, complete waste. Celine, only going to be used for ML Celine at this point, with a crit rate percent imprint, so there's a very high value imprint. Arki, Efrez, relatively new unit, but he doesn't really need an imprint, so C tier. He's still usable in like very niche scenarios. Mainly used for ML Charlotte, who does have a crit rate imprint, so it's very high value, but she's not very meta relevant right now, so I'm going to put into A tier. Samia, for ML Samia, and she does have some meta relevance right now, but not that much, so I'm going to put into A tier. Chloe, mainly for ML Chloe, who gives herself F-res. She is kind of meta relevant right now, but I'm just put it into B tier because it's not a crit chance, so I don't value it as high. Same with Shu, it just gives her ML version some more HP. She is kind of she's not really used, but she is used in some niche scenarios, B tier. Laika, PV unit, ML Laika, basically unplayable, D tier. Destina is a Ruel imprint who gives herself HP. She is very meta relevant right now, so A tier. Ida for the Solitaria imprint, but she's really not meta relevant right now, so C tier. Elena for herself, for the F-res, she is still kind of meta relevant against some cleave units. And Astromancer ML Elena gives herself attack percent, which isn't that great. So it's going to be mainly for the Elena herself, which is okay. Elvira, almost unusable in RTA, so I'm going to put this into D tier. Avalin, PvE unit, D tier. Bene, PvE unit, D tier. Elagos is a self crit rate imprint, which is very good, but he's not really meta relevant anymore, so B tier. Clan imprint, mainly going to be used for ML and limited versions. The limited version has lost most of its relevance already, and it's only attack percent imprint, so I'm going to put it into B tier. This thing is barely playable, it's almost unplayable in RTA, and its effectiveness, which is okay, pretty decent value, so C tier. So for the Crow, it's going to be mainly used for the ML Crow, which gives himself HP percent, which is pretty good. He has some meta relevance there, but not that much, so I'm going to put him into B tier. This is for ML Haste, HP percent imprint, completely out of the meta, so it's going to have to be a C or D tier, C tier. Next up, Hua Yang gives the ML Hua Yang crit rate imprint, which is really good. And she's actually picked a lot, but I just don't think the unit is that good. So because of that, I'm going to put into A tier. Iseria for ML Iseria, very broken unit, but it's only an attack percent imprint, so it's not amazing. but since the unit MO Asteria is so good, it's gonna have to go into A tier. Ilanav for the ML Ilanav HP percent imprint, gonna have to go into A tier because ML Ilanav is still very relevant. PvE unit Immortal Wukong for the attack percent imprint. Waste Genoa crit rate imprint, which is very good, but he's lost a lot of relevance, so I'm gonna have to put him to B tier. Kayron, only gonna be used for ML Kayron, who has a crit rate imprint, but the thing is his main build doesn't even use crit rate, so C tier. Ken, ML Ken only, who has an F-Res imprint, which is okay, but the unit itself isn't good, so C tier. Kisei, ML Kisei is not a good unit, C tier. Lidica, this one's actually not for the ML version because the ML version is completely unusable. It's actually for the RGB version. But she gives herself an attack percent imprint, which only increases the bleeds damage basically. It would have been way better if it was effectiveness, so I'm going to put her into C tier. And she's lost a lot of meta relevance, you barely see her nowadays anymore. ML Lilius imprint, who gives herself HP percent, not a very meta relevant unit, and HP percent is a very useless stat on ML Lilius for the most part, so C tier. Lua for ML Lua mainly, effectiveness, which is pretty good, and she has some relevance, and it's so B tier. Ludwig gives ML Ludwig crit rate imprint, which is very good. He has some relevance for cleavers, a decent amount actually, so I'm going to put into A tier for that. Luluka is also a cleaver for ML Luluka for the self crit rate imprint, but she's way less relevant than Ludwig, almost unplayable, so B tier. Mort, very relevant unit, and self crit rate imprint, so S tier. Muiz is just garbage, D tier. Pavel, irrelevant unit, even the ML version, and it's only attack percent imprint, not even crit rate, so I'm gonna go into C tier. Politis, effectiveness for herself, ML Politis, HP percent, which is kind of useless. But since Politis is kind of relevant, not really, lost a lot of relevance since the past 2 seasons, so I'm gonna put it into C tier. Peyra, both herself and the ML version only gets HP percent, and she's lost a lot of relevance, so I'm gonna go put it into C tier. Ran, only relevant for cleavers who are really fast, but it is the self crit rate imprint, and he's relevant, was he completely like beats teams like Lady of the Scales and stuff like that, so S tier. This imprint is mainly for ML Ravi, who does give herself self crit rate, which is valued very highly, but the unit is very irrelevant, so B tier. Same deal with Rowana, except the ML version gives herself effectiveness, very irrelevant unit nowadays, so C tier. Ray gives the ML version DDR effectiveness imprint, but the unit fell off like hard, so C tier. Narqual also fell off really hard, gives herself effectiveness, unplayable, C tier. Robin, PvE unit, so goes D tier. Setsuka, I think it's a self HP percent, she has some relevance, HP percent is okay, put into B tier. Says, mainly for ML says only, not even a crit chance imprint, only attack percent, and the unit is really bad, so C tier. Saria, kind of relevant, but kind of niche at the same time, only gives herself attack percent, not crit chance, so it goes into C tier. Sharoon, mainly used for ML Sharoon, gives her effectiveness, which is pretty good, because the unit itself is kind of relevant, so B tier for that. Cigarette, it's an effectiveness imprint for the limited cigarette, which is very relevant right now, so definitely A tier. Senya is mainly going to be an ML Senya imprint, HP percent for ML Senya, but ML Senya has completely fallen off a cliff, so C tier. Nebri as a unit that has lots of other variations. The limited version, not relevant. The 2 ML versions, only the light version is relevant. It gives herself HP percent, which is kind of a shame, but the unit is kind of good, even though it's not played that much. So B tier. If it was effectiveness, I'll put it into A tier, but since it's only HP percent, I'm going to put it into B tier. Tywin's going to be an ML Tywin imprint, but I'm completely fallen off the meta, so C tier. Vildred, if you're like somebody who races a lot, then he's going to go into S tier because his 12 speed imprint for the whole team. But if you don't really care about racing, then I'm going to put him into C tier. Violet is an ML Violet imprint who does give himself crit rate, but the thing is he's not very meta relevant, so I'm going to have to put him into B tier. Same thing with Vivian, he gives the ML Vivian a self crit rate imprint, but the unit is unplayable, so B tier. Euphine gives ML Euphine, I think defense or HP, I forgot. I think it's defense, but the unit has completely fallen off a cliff, and it's not even that great of an imprint, so C tier. Yoha can be used for herself, I think gives HP% or the ML Yoha, which is effectiveness, both which are pretty good, but since there's 2 units you can use it on, I'm gonna value it a bit higher. And ML Yoha is also very meta relevant right now, so I'm gonna put it into A tier. Yuna, useless unit. Zahak, also kind of useless unit. And I think that's it. Let me double check. I miss Schneel, but he only gives himself HP%, and his only use was against DDR. So since DDR is completely fallen out of the meta, there's no point using this unit either. So there's no point getting the imprint. So C or D tier.